Hey, this is Morgan from MorganOnScience.com. You met Morgan on Twitter. Yesterday, I went on a really nice bike ride out in the country with some folks, and I met a woman who is a scientist working in a well-known science lab. And I started talking to her a little bit about some of the grant writing advice and career advice that I've been helping people with, helping people get more grants and less rejections. And I told her a little bit about the genesis of this idea, and the genesis of the idea behind the work that I've been doing and helping people with is the notion that grant writing is essentially a marketing process. And when I told her that and explained that grant writing is really a marketing process, she really had some pushback. She said, well, no, I don't think it is. I don't think grant writing is really a marketing process. I think it's more about, it's a very technical thing. You have to really explain the science. You have to go into detail. It's a lot more technical than marketing. And, so she had lobbed the ball over the net. And so I lobbed one back, which was to say, well, you're trying to get funding for your project. And you're asking people to give a large amount of money to get your project going, and you're trying to convince skeptical people to give you money. It's not just people who are enthusiastically wanting to throw money at you. It's people who are very skeptical because the money resources these days are very scarce. And so it's very much like convincing a skeptical buyer. She's like, well, no, but it's different because it's science and because it's technical. It's different than sales. And so the one other thing that I responded to her with is that I'm not talking here about marketing in the sense of bad, cheesy, pushy marketing. I'm not talking about like the kind of marketing where a siding salesman comes to your house and tries to get you to buy new aluminum siding or new vinyl siding for your house and is just pushy and won't go away until you say yes or until you slam the door in their face. I'm not talking about that kind of marketing. My point to her was that marketing encompasses everything from that kind of bad marketing all the way over to the kind of very subtle marketing of great products. Like, for example, you may or may not like Apple's products like the iPad or some of their computers, but they do a great job of marketing. And their marketing is not that in-your-face marketing. It's a much more subtle, low-key kind of marketing. But, make no mistake, that is marketing nonetheless. And if a company like Apple or any other large company whose products I'm sure you probably buy, most people do anyway, if they weren't doing marketing, they would not exist as a company. It was clear to me that this conversation wasn't going very far, that she was just skeptical. Like the words marketing instantly turned her mind off to this notion. And so finally, when I told her a little bit about my track record in getting grants recently in the last few years, then she just was quiet. She didn't say anything more. And the conversation ended and we moved on. I think when she heard about what I've been able to accomplish, she was very shocked and realized that she had no other sort of basis for argument. But what that conversation did for me is reveal something about the resistance, the pushback to this notion that you have to market your science, or that there's marketing involved in getting your grant, or in any process of becoming recognized for the work and the science that you do. So I want to talk a little bit more about that pushback, and then talk about a very specific thing that you can do to overcome this problem and really go to the next level if you're trying to get grants or be successful in promoting yourself and your work. You've not heard of these folks, but they have incredible track records. So one of them is Craig Venter. So Craig Venter is the person who started the J. Craig Venter Institute, JCVI, and who was essentially at the forefront of pushing the human genome to be completed on a very timely basis, and since then has gone on to start an institute that has synthesized genomes from scratch and done all sorts of intriguing work about microbial diversity and so on. And this is somebody who has created these large institutes with famous scientists working with him and for him. Another person is Leroy Hood. Leroy Hood is the sort of the quote father of the name systems biology, and in fact started the Institute for Systems Biology in Seattle, and has started several other ventures, and has always had a big lab, always well funded, and is invited all over the world to speak about the kind of work that he does. So I ask you, do you think these people are smarter than you or smarter than me? And my answer is, I don't think they're actually smarter in terms of their science. I don't think they're smarter scientists. In fact, they're probably not any smarter about their science. But what they are smarter about, clearly, is their marketing. They may not call it marketing, but what they do, and what they do really well, is market themselves and their work. They start from a platform of doing great work, great science, and then build on top of that with a house of marketing. And so, you can choose one way or the other. You can choose to use that kind of model of people who've been successful at it, or you can say, no, I don't really like marketing. That concept is objectionable to me. I don't want to be successful. I want to just do great work, and it should stand on its own. And I'll tell you, that sets you up for struggles. That's one of the 3 common objections I was going to talk about to this concept of quote marketing, that your work, your science, whatever it is that you're doing, should just stand on its own. So, let me tell you briefly about my mother, because this is relevant. My mother is a watercolor artist who, for all of her career, did art for a living and supported herself. She was not supported by anybody else. She was not married to my father at the time. There was nobody supporting her. She supported herself through her artwork. And when I tell people this, so many people are surprised that an artist could actually support themselves with their art. And she didn't live high on the hog, but she did support herself. She had a reasonable lifestyle. And so many people are surprised that an artist could actually do this, could support themselves with just their art by selling art. And in looking at what my mom did, she did marketing. That's the thing she did. She did great art, and then on top of that, she did really good marketing. And it's not, again, it wasn't in-your-face marketing. It was simply a matter of getting her work exposed to the right people who were interested buyers at the right time when they were ready to buy, and they did buy. She had an income out of it. So, there are so many other artists, musicians, and scientists, and other people who, and authors, the authors are another key category, who approach this kind of work with the attitude of, my work should stand on its own. I don't want to get involved in that marketing stuff. Well, that's fine, but there are many starving artists, many starving novelists, or novelists who work at Starbucks on the side because they can't pay the bills. And in science, it's usually not so bad. Usually the scientists these days, at least, aren't starving, but your lab may be starving if you don't have the funding to run your projects. So the question is, marketing means funding. No marketing probably means no funding. Evil or whatever. Well, is being enthusiastic being shady and manipulative? Because being enthusiastic about your work is one form of marketing your work. It's very hard for another human being to listen to you being enthusiastic about something and not get a little inkling of enthusiasm themselves. I mean, it can happen, but they are far more likely, just through your enthusiasm, to be enthusiastic for you and for your work. Is that shady and underhanded? I don't think so. I mean, there are manipulative marketing tactics that people can use, and I'm not suggesting that you use those tactics. Marketing is a very broad word that encompasses a lot of different things, and so I'm not saying that anybody in the scientific realm should use shady or underhanded techniques. You shouldn't. That comes back to bite you in the rear end later.